She joked, "If you fix this engine, I'll marry you." He didn't laugh. He just fixed it. It was 3:42 p.m. on a Thursday when the engine gave out. Not in some dramatic Hollywood-style fireball, just a subtle shudder, a flickering dashlight, and then silence. The air conditioning died first. The Georgia heat slipped in through the vents like it had been waiting. Vanessa clenched the steering wheel, her eyes narrowing behind dark sunglasses. "Great," she muttered, easing the SUV onto the gravel shoulder near a faded road sign that read, "Bell's Auto Repair, 1 mile ahead. No signal, no assistant, no backup vehicle." Vanessa took off her sunglasses and looked at herself in the rearview mirror. Her silk blouse stuck slightly to the back of her neck. The AC wasn't coming back, and neither was her patience. She stepped out into the dust, heels sinking slightly into the soft gravel. The sun was merciless. She gave one last, annoyed glance at the engine before slamming the hood shut. The heat was rising literally and figuratively. 1 mile. She could walk that, and she did. Hair frizzing, blouse clinging, pride bruised with every step. Bell's Auto Repair didn't look like much. The open sign in the window flickered like it didn't quite believe it. The building was low and square, built in the 70s if she had to guess. The paint on the siding was peeling. The only signs of life were the slow whir of a ceiling fan behind the screen door and the faint sound of jazz playing on a dusty radio. Inside, it smelled like rubber, metal, and something fried. A man stood near the back, hands deep inside the hood of an old Chevy. He didn't look up right away, just wiped his brow with the back of his wrist and kept going. Sitting quietly off to the side was a young girl, maybe 10 years old. Brown skin, a high puff of curls, pink Converse sneakers swinging from a tall stool. She had a half-open sketchbook in her lap and a red pencil clenched between her teeth. The girl noticed her first. "Daddy," she said softly. "Someone's here." The man stood up slowly, wiping his hands on a stained rag. He had deep lines in his face. Not from age, but from work. Hard work. The kind that didn't leave room for pretense. "Need help?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Vanessa straightened. "Yeah, my engine overheated about a mile up. No signal, no idea why. Can you take a look?" He grabbed a cap from a hook and nodded once toward the road. "Sure. Just got to close the shop a minute." Zora grabbed the kit. The girl hopped down, already moving. 5 minutes later, he was under the hood of her SUV. Sleeves rolled up, eyes scanning everything with focused precision. Vanessa leaned against the passenger door, arms crossed. "I have a team that usually handles this," she said, more to herself than to anyone. "I shouldn't even be here." He didn't respond. She glanced over. "You always work like this? Alone?" "Not alone," he said, his eyes still on the engine. "She's here." Zora was sitting cross-legged on the gravel, sketching the side mirror. Vanessa shook her head. Shouldn't she be at camp or something? The man stood up slowly. "Camp costs money. I run a shop. She comes with me." There was no apology in his tone. Vanessa studied his face for a moment. He didn't look tired, but he looked like someone who didn't have time to be tired. She recognized that look. "So," she said, letting the sarcasm drip, "if you can fix this engine, I'll marry you." Zora giggled without looking up. Elijah didn't miss a beat. He just looked at her and said, "Challenge accepted." Not flirtatious, not joking, just steady. Vanessa blinked. For the first time in a long time, she didn't have a comeback. Something about the way he said it made her want to stay and watch. Elijah popped the hood open wider, then leaned in with the kind of focus Vanessa usually saw in neurosurgeons or courtroom analysts. He didn't talk much, just reached, adjusted, listened, and wiped something with a cloth that looked older than his daughter. The whole thing felt intentional, like even the silence had a job to do. Vanessa glanced around the garage again. There was no receptionist, no glass water dispenser, no espresso machine humming in the corner. Just 3 cracked stools, a sagging couch covered with a moving blanket, and a faded calendar from 2018 that still hung by one thumbtack on the corkboard. Zora sat on the couch now, flipping to a fresh page in her sketchbook. She glanced at Vanessa, then back to her paper. Her hands started moving. You drawing me? Vanessa asked. Zora didn't look up. Kind of. Vanessa smirked. Make me look like a superhero, would you? I don't know what kind you'd be yet, Zora said, very matter-of-fact. Elijah let out a soft chuckle under the hood. Vanessa crossed her arms. Oh, and what kind do I look like? Zora finally looked up and squinted. One that's strong but probably needs a nap. That made Elijah laugh harder. Vanessa raised an eyebrow, amused. You raising a comedian back there? She's observant, Elijah said, his eyes still on the radiator. Gets that from her mom. There was something gentle in the way he said it, like the name had weight. Vanessa didn't press. She sat down on one of the stools, brushing off a layer of dust with a business card swipe of her hand. So, how bad is it? She asked. Elijah leaned back, wiping his hands. Your cooling fan relay's shot. Could be more, but that's the first issue. I'll have to replace it. Might take a couple of hours. Got one in the back. Vanessa nodded, not thrilled. I've got a meeting at 6 back in Charleston. Elijah glanced at the sun through the garage door, then shrugged. You'll make it. Barely. Assuming I don't mess it up. That earned a smirk from her. Comforting. He disappeared into the back while Zora kept sketching and humming something off-key. Vanessa tapped her heel against the concrete, the rhythm slowing until she just stopped. Her phone still had no bars. She looked over at the little girl, who now appeared to be drawing her SUV as if it were a cartoon animal with long eyelashes and a smirk. You come here every day? Vanessa asked. Zora nodded without looking up. Yep. Don't you get bored? Sometimes. But Dad says bored kids get creative. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. That work on you? Zora held up the sketch. What do you think? It was actually kind of good. Loose, playful lines, but the detail was sharp. She'd even caught the exact slope of the CEO's tired shoulders. Vanessa smiled, surprised. You've got talent. Zora grinned. I know. Elijah returned, carrying a small box and a socket wrench set. We'll need about an hour and a half, he said, getting back under the hood. You can hang here or walk to the diner 3 blocks down. It's clean. I'll stay, Vanessa said almost too quickly. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the quiet or the lack of people asking her for something. Or maybe she just liked the idea of being invisible for a minute. I used to draw, she said suddenly, not really sure who she was talking to. Zora perked up. What happened? Grew up? Vanessa said with a shrug that said more than she meant it to. Zora didn't respond right away, then said gently, That doesn't mean you have to stop. Vanessa looked at her, something softening in her jaw. But just as the silence started to settle into something warm, Elijah's socket wrench made a loud clink against the engine, and the moment was gone. The heat hadn't let up, but inside the garage, something had shifted. Vanessa's posture wasn't as rigid now. She'd undone the top button of her blouse, kicked off her heels, and sat barefoot on the old couch with her phone face down beside her. Zora was still sketching. Elijah worked in a rhythm. Slow, steady, methodical. What's your name again? Zora asked suddenly, looking up from her drawing. Vanessa. You don't look like a Vanessa. She raised an eyebrow. What do I look like? Zora squinted. Maybe a Nikki or a Tasha. Something with more spark. Vanessa chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. There was a beat of silence. Then the girl asked, Are you rich? The question hit like a soft slap, direct, honest. Vanessa hesitated, her eyes narrowing playfully. Why do you ask? You dress like it, Zora said, matter of fact. And you walked in here like someone who's used to being in charge. Vanessa laughed, more out of shock than anything. Well, I am in charge. CEO of a logistics firm. Big one. Zora blinked. What's logistics? We move stuff, Vanessa said. Freight, containers, trucks, supply chain. We help people get what they need where they need it. Zora considered that. Like UPS, kind of, but less brown. She giggled. Vanessa leaned back on the couch. Why are you asking all these questions? Zora shrugged. People don't talk much when they're waiting. I get bored, so I ask stuff. Are you always this blunt? Zora smiled. Dad says being direct saves time. Vanessa nodded slowly. He's not wrong. In the background, Elijah reached for a different wrench, pausing just long enough to glance at them. He didn't interrupt. Zora closed her sketchbook. You got any kids? Vanessa blinked. No. Why not? That's complicated. Oh. Zora didn't press, but her eyes stayed on Vanessa. Vanessa exhaled through her nose. Let's just say my job didn't leave a lot of room for that. I was always chasing something. Something bigger. Like what? I don't know anymore. Zora nodded like she understood. Even if she didn't. Your dad teach you to draw? Nope. I just started one day. He seems like a good one. He is, she said without hesitation. Vanessa looked toward the engine. You ever get tired of being here every day? Zora shrugged. Sometimes, but I like watching him work. He doesn't rush things. That landed harder than Vanessa expected. Elijah's voice broke the silence. Fans in. Give me 15 to finish it off. Zora hopped off the couch and stretched. I'm going to get water. Want some? She asked Vanessa. Sure. When Zora left through the side door, Vanessa walked slowly toward Elijah, watching him torque down the final bolts. She's smart, Vanessa said. Too smart sometimes. You always bring her here? He didn't look up. Ain't got many options. I'd rather her be with me than in some place I can't afford or don't trust. There was no shame in his tone, just truth. You ever worry she's missing out? On what? iPads and air-conditioned classrooms that don't teach her half of what she's learned sitting right here. Vanessa was quiet. He finally looked at her. I don't mean no offense, but some folks think success looks a certain way. Money, buildings, titles. Me? I just want her to know she's safe. That she's got someone who shows up. There was something final in the way he said it. Vanessa nodded slowly. That's rare. Elijah turned back to the engine. It shouldn't be. But before she could answer, Zora came back in with 2 paper cups of water, and the moment faded back into movement. Zora handed Vanessa the paper cup like it was a peace offering. It's warm, she warned. Vanessa took a sip anyway. Better than nothing. Elijah slid out from under the SUV with a tired groan and wiped his hands on a towel hanging from his back pocket. His shirt clung to his shoulders, sweat soaking the collar. He looked like someone who'd been working since sunrise, and probably had. It's done, he said. Should run smooth for now. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. For now. Elijah gave a half-smile. I patched what needed patching. But you keep pushing this engine without regular service. It'll keep dying on you. She looked at the car, then back at him. Like people? He paused. Exactly like people. She followed him to the workbench, where he scribbled some notes on a carbon copy pad. No computer system, no emailed invoices with a PDF and a polite message. Just a torn sheet and a handshake. Vanessa pulled out her wallet. What do I owe you? He slid the paper toward her. She blinked. This can't be right. It is. This is low. Like, shockingly low. I charge what it costs, not what I can get away with. She studied his face. No bluff. No performance. Just a man telling the truth. I'll pay double, she offered. He shook his head. Don't need it. Vanessa crossed her arms. That's not how this works. He locked eyes with her. It's how it works here. She didn't say anything for a long second. The fan creaked overhead. Outside, a car passed by, music thumping faintly through closed windows. Why'd you even say yes to that joke? She asked. Back when I said I'd marry you if you fixed the car. Elijah smirked. Figured it'd shut you up for a minute. That made her laugh harder than she meant to. Well, mission accomplished. He walked back to the engine bay and leaned against it. You seemed like someone who hadn't stopped in a long time. Not really. Thought maybe if I took your car apart for a while, you'd sit still long enough to breathe. Vanessa stared at him. You always read people like that? He shrugged. Only when they walk in like they own the whole block. She didn't get defensive. She just lowered her gaze and smiled. You know what's funny? She said after a moment. What? I used to be like your daughter. Elijah glanced toward Zora, who was now on the floor, flipping through a coloring book. How do you mean? Curious, happy, loud sometimes, but thoughtful. I used to spend hours drawing. Had a sketchbook in every bag I owned. Let me guess. You got told it wasn't practical. She nodded slowly. Not directly, but yeah. Eventually, ambition drowned it out. He nodded. It happens to a lot of folks. You ever want more than this? She asked. The shop, the heat, all of it. Elijah thought for a second. Sure, everyone wants more, but not all more is better. I want time, peace. I want to be around when my kid gets home. That's the kind of rich I'm after. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, biting her bottom lip. I think you might be the first man I've met who means that. He didn't respond, just looked down, adjusting a rag in his hand. Look, Vanessa said. You probably think people like me live in a bubble. I don't think, Elijah said. I watch. She smirked again. Fine, then you probably see people like me living in a bubble. And you're right. My days are scheduled down to the 5-minute mark. I eat out of plastic containers. I sleep with my phone face up. Everything looks shiny from the outside, but most of the time, I'm just exhausted. Elijah nodded once. Then maybe the engine wasn't the only thing that needed fixing. But before she could answer, Zora stood up and proudly held out her sketchbook, and the moment cracked open into something gentler again. The next time Vanessa showed up, it was a Wednesday morning. No engine trouble, no appointment, no heels. She pulled up in the same SUV, now running fine, parked in the same spot under the Crooked Bell's auto repair sign, and stepped out with a brown paper bag in one hand and a brand new sketchbook in the other. Zora spotted her first through the window and gasped. Dad, she came back. Elijah peeked out from under a Jeep. Car trouble. Nope, Vanessa said. Lunch? He looked skeptical. For me. For both of you. I brought chicken salad and something that looks like lemonade but might be poison. We'll see. Zora snatched the bag before her dad could protest. She's cool. Can she stay? Elijah wiped his hands and gave a slow shake of his head, more amused than annoyed. Sure, why not? They sat on crates out back in the patch of shade behind the shop, sipping from paper cups and talking about nothing important, the kind of conversation that didn't need an agenda. Vanessa handed the sketchbook to Zora. I figured your last one's almost full. You deserve better paper. Zora beamed. This one smells like money. Vanessa laughed. That's how you know it's real. Elijah took a bite of his sandwich and nodded slowly. So what brings you here, really? She hesitated. I just needed a break. He didn't press, just chewed quietly, then said, Most people in your position don't know how to sit still. You doing okay? Vanessa stared at the gravel for a second. Honestly, I don't know. I've been running for so long. I don't even remember what it feels like to just sit. Zora interrupted. You should come here more. We got old tires you can sit on, weird smells, and sometimes free gum. Elijah shot her a look, but Vanessa burst out laughing. Tempting offer. That visit turned into another, then another. Sometimes she brought pastries. Other days she brought a book she hadn't had time to read. Once, she even brought Elijah a new set of wrenches with his name engraved on the handles. He said it was too much but used them anyway. They never planned anything. She'd just show up, stay for an hour or two if it was slow. They never talked about work, at least not hers. He never asked and she never bragged. She told him about a dog she almost adopted, a brother she hadn't spoken to in years, and a dream she had once of being a children's book illustrator. He listened, sometimes responded, but mostly he just let her speak without trying to solve anything. One afternoon, Zora brought out her newest drawing. It was of all three of them. Vanessa in her work blouse but barefoot, Elijah with grease on his face and a wrench in his hand, and Zora in between, holding both their hands. Vanessa stared at it for a long time. You got my bad side. Zora grinned. It's your real side. Elijah looked over her shoulder. She draws what she sees. Vanessa nodded slowly. Then maybe I need to look in the mirror more often. At one point, she asked Elijah, "You ever wish we'd met under different circumstances?" He looked at her, confused. What's wrong with this one? She thought about it. All of it. The sweat, the gravel, the warm water in paper cups, the conversations that drifted like lazy jazz from his radio. Nothing, she said. Absolutely nothing. But even as she said it, she felt something shift. Something deeper than gratitude but quieter than love. Rain was falling the next time she came. Not the polite kind that taps on windows, but the thick, sideways kind that soaks your ankles in seconds. Vanessa burst into the garage, holding her bag over her head. She looked like someone who'd just escaped a hostage situation at a board meeting. Elijah looked up from a truck lift and smirked. "You know, umbrellas are a thing, right?" "I'm aware," she huffed, dropping her soggy bag on the counter. "I was trying to outrun the guilt of canceling my 4th therapy session in a row." Zora peeked out from behind a stack of tires. "Want a towel?" "Yes, and maybe a dry sole." The girl vanished into the back with a giggle. Elijah leaned on the workbench. "Bad day. Bad week. Every time I think I'm catching my breath, something else grabs me by the throat. Business, investors, my team, my phone." "You tried turning it off?" Vanessa shot him a look. "I'm not you, Elijah." "No one is," he replied too calmly. "That's your problem." She dried her hair with the towel Zora brought and slumped into the corner of the couch, eyes fixed on the cracked ceiling tile above her. "I had to let someone go today. A good person, loyal. Just didn't fit the new structure we're building." Elijah didn't flinch. "And you feel like trash for it." "Exactly. Did you tell her that?" "No." "Why not?" She hesitated. "Because I didn't want her to think I was being soft." Elijah raised his eyebrows. "Sometimes soft is honest." Vanessa let the silence hang, absorbing that. Zora crawled up beside her on the couch. "You ever cry at work?" Vanessa smiled weakly. "More than I'd admit." "I saw my dad cry once," Zora said. "I didn't say anything, just sat next to him." Vanessa turned her head slowly. "That's what you're doing now, huh?" The girl shrugged. "Maybe." Vanessa looked over at Elijah. "You ever wish life had come with a manual?" He wiped his hands on a rag. "Every day. But if it had, I probably would have skipped the hard chapters." They didn't talk much after that. Elijah went back to work. Zora sketched quietly. Vanessa just sat there doing nothing for the first time in days, and it felt like enough. Later, as she was leaving, she paused at the door. "You know, you're the first person in a long time who's told me the truth without trying to sell me something." Elijah didn't look up. "Truth don't cost anything." She smiled. "No, but it's hard to find." One Saturday, she came by with a file folder. "I need your opinion," she said, dropping it on the bench. Elijah wiped off his fingers and flipped through the pages. "What is this?" "An offer for a community transport contract. Good pay, low overhead, but it's going to be messy and political. I could use someone local to consult." "You mean me?" "Yeah." He looked up. "Why?" "Because I trust you, and because you've built something here. People like you, they listen." Elijah considered it. "You're not doing this out of guilt, are you?" "Nope. I'm doing it because I'm tired of building empires that don't do anything for real people." He looked at the folder again. "I'll think about it." "Take your time." He gave her a rare, full smile. "You're learning." That afternoon, Zora gave her a bracelet made out of scrap wires and a nut from an old carburetor. "It's a friendship bracelet," she said proudly. Vanessa slipped it on like it was Cartier. "I'll wear it to my next board meeting." "You better," Zora warned. They laughed. All three of them. The kind of laugh that settles deep in your chest and stays there. But it wasn't the bracelet or the offer that stuck with Vanessa. It was the realization that this garage had become something steady in her life. Something that didn't need fixing. The final time she visited that summer, the air had changed. The kind of warmth that didn't feel heavy anymore, just familiar. Vanessa didn't bring food. She didn't bring files. She just showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, holding a small white box wrapped with plain twine. Zora was waiting, sitting on the same milk crate, chewing on a pen cap. "You're late," she said. "I wasn't aware I was expected." Zora shrugged. "You're basically part-time now." Inside, Elijah was adjusting a belt on a rust-red truck. He gave a quick glance but didn't stop working. "Something wrong?" "Nope," she said, placing the box on the counter. "Something right." Elijah looked at the box, then at her. "What is it?" "Open it." He wiped his hands, then slowly tugged the twine loose. Inside was a small plaque, dark wood, clean lines. The metal plate read, "Bell's Auto Repair. Sometimes the best work happens off the books." He stared at it for a long second, then looked at her with a kind of stillness that said more than words could. "I had it made last week," Vanessa said. "Didn't know if I'd actually bring it." Zora peeked into the box. "That's fancy. Are we famous now?" Vanessa smiled. "You've always been important. Now you're just official." Elijah ran a finger along the edge of the plaque. "It's too much." "No, it's not," she said quietly. They sat outside for a while, sipping iced tea Zora had proudly made using way too much sugar. The three of them didn't talk much, just watched a few cars roll by, the occasional gust of wind stirring dust from the gravel lot. "You remember when we first met?" Vanessa asked. Elijah didn't even look at her. "You said you'd marry me if I fixed your engine." Zora's eyes went wide. "Wait, what?" "It was a joke," Vanessa said quickly. "No, it wasn't," Elijah replied, deadpan. She laughed. "You took it seriously." "No," he said. "I just wanted to see what kind of woman throws out an offer like that to a stranger in a hot garage. And you were exactly what I thought." She raised an eyebrow. "Which was?" "Worn out, guarded, tired of being in charge all the time, but trying not to look like it." She didn't respond. She just looked down at her drink and swirled the ice with her finger. After a beat, Elijah added, "You still look like that sometimes." She sighed. "Yeah, but less than I used to." They eventually went back inside. Vanessa helped Zora organize some of her drawings into a folder. Some were cartoons. Others were so detailed they looked like charcoal portraits. One of them, Vanessa noticed, was a new version of the sketch she'd made months ago. The three of them. This time, she'd added a sun overhead and two small toolboxes side by side. "Can I keep this one?" Vanessa asked. "No," Zora said bluntly. "That one's mine." Vanessa laughed. "Fair." As the day slipped into late afternoon, she stood in front of the garage with her keys in hand. The engine still purred, perfectly tuned, but she hesitated before getting in. "You know," she said, turning back toward Elijah, "I thought I had everything figured out when I pulled in here the first time. Thought I had all the answers." He leaned against the wall, arms folded. "And now?" he asked. She smiled. "Now I know I was asking the wrong questions." He nodded once, then pushed off the wall and walked toward her. Not close, just enough to say something real. "You don't have to run all the time. Some things get clearer when you're not moving." She swallowed that down like a hard truth. "I'll come back," she said. "I know." She looked over at Zora, who was waving from the bay door with her signature crooked grin. Vanessa got in, rolled down the window, and said, "Don't forget me when you get famous." Zora yelled back, "I won't. You're in like 12 drawings." As she drove off, Vanessa felt something she hadn't in years. Not relief, not escape, but peace. Not the kind you find at a beach or in a yoga class, but the kind you find when someone sees you, really sees you, and doesn't ask you to change. Sometimes the most important repairs aren't made with tools. They're made with time and space. And a kid with a sketchbook who thinks you're more interesting than your title. This wasn't a love story. It was something stronger. It was a reminder that friendship can be the one thing that saves you when nothing else works. Life isn't always about what breaks down. Sometimes it's about who's willing to help you build again. If this story made you pause, even for a moment, share it. Tell someone you appreciate them. Or just slow down. Sit still. Let someone see you. You never know what you'll walk away with.